First of all, viewers, I'm sorry for starting the show at least 2 to 3 minutes late today. I'd like to begin by saying that some sections are surprised that the BBC has got a notice from the Delhi High Court in response to a claim of 10,000 crore rupees in damages for the documentary titled India, the Modi Question. But I'm not in the least bit surprised. I'm not sure of the 10,000 crore bit. That may sound a bit excessive. But this case has to be followed closely because the fact is that Harish Salve, no less, is appearing for the NGO seeking the damages. This means that this is going to be a very serious legal case. It will be very closely followed. The arguments presented by Mr. Salve will get spoken about. And this reaffirms the fact that the BBC has got itself into a big mess. First, of course, as we have exposed here on Republic, by trying to break India's foreign exchange rules. And then for attempting to spread disinformation by willfully spreading falsehoods. The tactic of the BBC has been to broadcast and scoot. So you put out a documentary and then you basically run. This legal case will not allow them to scoot. They can't be allowed to run away. The BBC has to be completely exposed for spreading a false narrative. And if the BBC has to be exposed, then it has to be properly exposed in a court of law, where there are points of view against it, let it present its defense, and let there be a very well-researched argument presented on both sides. So that the BBC can't get away by saying, oh, these are opinions of Republic, we don't care. If there is a lawsuit, then the BBC has to defend itself in a court of law or pay damages. If it doesn't want to pay damages, it has to claim its innocence. What I particularly like about this legal case is the way it has been phrased. Viewers, I'd like to begin by saying today that there are certain phrases that are used by organizations like the BBC, by the prejudiced Western media, and it is constantly used in the Indian context. The BBC is part of an establishment that celebrates the empire. The BBC celebrates British colonial past. The BBC never speaks about the tens of thousands of people who were killed and tortured over the years by the British. They try to make the empire out to be something very fancy, almost a fairy tale land. The reality is they have no guts to speak about their own British history. However, they like to pass judgment on what goes on in India, because perhaps the BBC or maybe the British are threatened by India, and hence they want to create this narrative that India is a country where there is a majoritarian country that is going through democratic backsliding, where there is an electoral autocracy because their favorite politicians aren't in power anymore. And hence what they do is, in their editorial content, they deliberately emphasize on certain aspects, diminish other aspects, and by playing the game of weight and emphasis, they try to put out a fake narrative. This is precisely what has been brought out in this case. Let me read out a part of what has been put out in this particular petition. It says, the second episode is rife with falsehoods and a wild, unsubstantiated allegation in regard to Kashmir. Allegations of state-sponsored violence are casually made in the episode, which goes so far as to suggest that the Indian judiciary and the criminal justice system of India are fundamentally incapable of rendering justice, of upholding the rule of law. And I like the way the next line is put out. It is spot on. It says, the suggestion is that the Indian police and the Indian judicial system is irredeemably majoritarian, and that since its members, since it is the members of a minority community that are being targeted, the state and the legal system don't come to their aid. Viewers, this is precisely the point. This is false, this is malicious, this is scurrilous. But this is precisely the game organizations like the BBC and the prejudiced Western media do vis-a-vis India. They present a wrong picture of India because it suits their narrative. And the essential picture is Indian democracy is unstable because Narendra Modi is in power. This is not a democracy, it is an electoral autocracy. And because the BJP is in power and they fundamentally disagree with the BJP, they portray India as a majoritarian country where the institutions are controlled by the majority, where the institutions are controlled by the Hindu majority, to be precise. Now, this is false. You may not say so in as many words, but what the BBC needs to understand is people are intelligent. They see through. This case, when it is argued in court, will be fascinating because we will have to go leaf by leaf and page by page and expose the BBC's agenda. Agenda behind so-called journalism is not journalism, and that's exactly what the BBC has done. It's not doing any journalism. It's following a particular agenda. And why I think this debate will be fascinating when it is argued in the High Court, because we'd like to see the BBC in the witness box. We'd like to see what they say in turn. And we'd love to see Harish Salve rip into the BBC. Debate number 1, viewers, tonight. BBC is being made to face the law. It has been sued. This is going to be a historic case. No more shoot and scoot for the BBC. Debate number 2 this evening. The super hit of the G20, which is now being held, its latest conclave, sub-conclave, is in Kashmir, and Pakistan is burning. We have a great India-Pakistan debate on our G20 moment in Kashmir. That's debate number 2. And here are the headlines this Monday evening on the Debate Tonight.